Hey y'all, it's
Mother,
Motha Knows.
and we're back.
What?
Knowing,
Just knowing.
as usual, typically,
We
always.
came back knowing. What up, y'all?
Hey.
So what's up?
What's up? What are we talking about today?
First and foremost, how are you?
I'm good, no complaints. It's Monday, it's a beautiful day, beautiful start of the week. I'm here with my sis, we're building and enjoying each other. So
Yes.
it's a wonderful day. Like my husband always says, it's amazing.
It's a beautiful day to be a black woman.
Hey.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
Yes. And I'm with my sis, so anytime we get to hang out, it's a good day.
Right.
So what you been up to? What you want to talk about? Let's get into it. What you want to talk about?
Well, okay. So, this morning, right, when we were just talking about what's been going on and everything, we came across, or we talked about the Tiana Taylor and Iman.
Yeah.
I think his last name is Schubert. I hope I'm saying that right.
Shumpert?
Is it Shumpert? Okay. Tiana and Iman, them separating and how surprised we were when we first heard about that. And, it's always surprising, I think, when couples that appear to be in a good place, in a good space, and you just, you get that announcement, right?
Especially for, young, thriving, vibrant. And we love us some Tiana.
Yeah.
So, by virtue, we love us some Iman.
Yeah.
But just them together.
Yeah. I like them together. Yep. And then also too, Tia Mowry, right? Mm-hmm. She put up a post this week about, because we do know that she filed for divorce from her husband, Corey Hardick. Yeah. And she put up a post this week about, just because dating is hard and getting used to the single life now is hard, doesn't mean she's going to go back to what wasn't serving her. She said, I'm done.
I am not that weekend. You know what? I feel you, girl.
Right.
So I mean, only you know.
Yeah, only you know what you dealt with and where it took you, and if you want to go back to that place.
Right.
And so that just made me just think about like the current state of relationships, of marriage, and just what that means for this generation. I think a lot of couples are splitting, and that's normal too. That's a cycle of things, right?
Yeah. I mean, we all know the statistic: 50% of marriages supposedly
don't make it. They end up in divorce. And so that just really had me just reflecting on a few things. Marriage, the view of marriage that we had growing up, the generational view of marriage. And so I just want to start with, like growing up, what we saw and how that feeds into our marriage dynamics today, personally, right? Mm-hmm. We can talk about the broader view, but personally, what does that mean? And how did it mold us as wives, and as partners?
Yeah.
And, we, maybe people don't know, but our parents, were divorced. And they divorced, when we were pretty young. So it was kind of the normal for us.
That's all I knew. I was.
Yeah, what? You wouldn't have any memory of them actually being together. They were when you were, when you were a baby.
Like 2 when they separated, and 5 by the time they finalized their divorce.
Yeah. So, I think me walking into marriage, I think I leaned a lot into what not to do, and in hindsight, not knowing that when you are so focused on that thing can become reality, and usually does become reality to a certain extent. And so things that I was focusing on, like, I've got to make sure I don't do this. And that's where my focus was. Mm-hmm. And so, I think that just seeing our parents not married, and then a lot of couples around us ended up in divorce. Mm-hmm. I walked into marriage not with a negative view, but instead of walking into marriage in how can I put this? Focusing on what's going to go right. What's the optimism? And I was optimistic, but it was always framed in, I don't want this to happen.
It's like a negative couch.
Right.
Couched in
like in fear. Yes. Couched in fear. Yep.
I was going to say, I was scared a little bit going into marriage because, like you said, what we saw. Now I'll talk about what we were told versus what we saw. Mm-hmm. But for me, what we saw, again, all we knew was really divorce. And unfortunately, one thing that we knew also was not like the amicable, like working together to build a blended family divorce. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of strife for a long time.
So
it was like I had like a knot, if you will, kind of in my stomach as a child, just kind of thinking about the idea. I wasn't that girl that always like pictured my wedding day and what my dress would look like. Like I wasn't that girl because that's not what I saw. And I actually had a little bit of a fear attached to it. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And I think generationally, right? So when you think of again, you see a lot of couples that have been together for a few years, you know, deciding to go their separate ways. Then it's like generationally, what is the state of marriage? Because when you think about your grandparents, and just older couples, and seeing them, you know, married 50, 60 years and they sticking through it no matter what, divorce is not an option. And then in today's world, it's people are more accepting of, if I have to walk away, I'm fine. You know,
I think
I can walk away.
Accepts it a little bit more. It's not like you're shunned. Like
exactly.
I feel like, you know, back then it was like if you're the divorced woman on the street, and sadly it was always the woman. It wasn't the divorced
man, right?
It was, oh, she's the divorced woman on the street with children. You know, so
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but I do think the day and age that we're in, where everything is so readily available, social media and everything, that there is a bit of a perception that might be a little bit off about what the state of marriage is, because in my everyday life, I will say that I'm surrounded by beautiful couples that that really value the commitment that is marriage. And I'll say for me, shouting out Darren Brand, I love when he says that. But for me, in my house, we are a family that really holds true to the idea that marriage is a covenant, right? So it's not just you walk into it and there are some outs. Now, don't get me wrong, there are definitely some things like physical abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse, ongoing, perpetual infidelity. These are things that can cause someone, and I wholeheartedly would, support someone saying that
I can't deal with this anymore. Yeah.
Especially so physical abuse for sure. And even emotional and mental, when it comes to a point where it's so bad that it's taking away, it's like cutting down the inside of you, it's breaking you down. Again, perpetual infidelity to the point where your partner doesn't care about your life and your well-being, and it is opening you up to, multiple partners and diseases and things like that. Out. I get it, but there is something to be said about approaching marriage as if it is a covenant. It is bigger than you. It's Tony Evans describes the covenant as a divine design. You're divinely designed for a relationship bond with someone, and that doesn't mean to say that there's only one person out there for you, but there are people out there that if you are aligned together, God has designed that person for you, and you come together in alignment, and you guys are both on the same page that you are in this together for God to be your center, to work through you, to build you, to shape you and mold you, to make you your best self. That's that's how I came into marriage with my partner.
Yeah. Because I've been married for 12 years, together for 16, 17. It's like between that 16, 17, because we started dating in college. So for me, I've seen a lot of sides, right, to marriage, to a lot of sides to my husband, a lot of sides to myself. When you are together so young, right, and you're growing together, though there are cycles. There are cycles of marriage. And what always
got together, just for context, y'all got together in college, right?
Yeah. Just said that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just joking, but I
missed that point. I'm so sorry.
Right, A&T Aggie Pride. Anyway, but
legal Eagles.
We're not here for the Eagles. But what got me through some of those tougher cycles was, to your point, covenant. I always went back to the covenant that I made with God first. God, I remember my covenant that I stood and agreed, with you that I'm going to represent your love, your kind of love that you have for the church. I'm going to represent that love with my partner. And so that always pulled me back to a place where it's like, okay, that's the commitment that I hold true to myself. And so that's what I'm going to work through to see if it's going to realign us, right? And it can't just be me, of course.
Right.
The other person has to be willing to realign themselves, because then it's like if you can't. I'm of the thinking that, and Erica Campbell, I watched her this morning and she said it. She said a lot of times, she spoke about her parents being together for a long time, and she said a lot of times people get married and they are married for the good parts. Mm. But when it becomes a part where it's as bad it's as bad as you couldn't imagine,
for better or worse,
right?
At worst,
that you couldn't imagine. And she was like, I, for me, was able to give that love and sow that forgiveness and love and God back into it, because that is what I said when I agreed with God that I was going to do.
And quite frankly, what you expect God to do for you when you fall.
And that was her point. She said, how can I ask God when I fall to forgive me, to be there for me, to pull me back up, if the person that I'm aligned with through God, I can't give them that same benefit.
Right.
Now, I will say that every person has that point of, I can't do it or I can, right? So it's not to say I'm against divorce or against, working through things, not working through things. It really is an individual case. But for me, when I'm reminded of that covenant, that is what reminds me, of how I should represent myself in any phase of marriage, when it's good and when it's bad. And yeah, so that's what I think about when I think about cycles.
I think also too, when you think about marriage, it really is truly, there's a lot of preparation that I would impose upon anybody who's thinking about marriage, and that includes prayer. Like when someone comes to you for me and my husband, we were friends first, but there was something special about him that was just instant. I knew that he was special, right? But I didn't want to fall into, when you're young, like you meet someone that you connect with, you fall into that fairy tale, you start imagining things, and I didn't want to fall into that. I was very intentional with him because he was very special. And it was a friendship that we molded that was like, out of this world. We could just hang out and it was just so natural and it felt like home instantly.
Oh, we just friends. Yeah, okay.
She used to get on me for saying
that. Okay.
But anyway, but yeah, that friendship was key for us. But we prayed together, and I prayed for him. I prayed about him. I prayed, God, if this is what you would truly have for me, I want to make sure that I'm doing this thing the right way.
Yeah.
But it's not just prayer, right? We aligned ourselves with people who have done it, and not just done it,
not just the rosy and it's all pretty,
right.
Girl.
They were like,
Child.
Through and through.
Because I done been some of them examples. Girl, it ain't always pretty.
Right. I mean, but they really were real with us. Like I to this day, I call them out. Miss Joyce and Mr. Bryant were our counselors.
And ours too.
And your counselor as well, your marriage counselors. And, I still stay connected with them to this day. And I share, things about our family because I'm just so proud of what we've built, but I'm so thankful for what they did to help us get there. And it was like God truly worked through them. And, I'm grateful for them. So it's prayer. It's aligning yourself with people who are going to be real with you about what marriage is. And it's also like just relationship, like really getting to know somebody before you say, this is my, like I said, we're in I believe it's Melissa and Kevin on Stage. I think his wife's name is Melissa. But they had a podcast. I don't know if they still have it, but they were doing a series because they had a book that came out, Marriage Be Hard. And it really is work. It's hard, but it's a beautiful process because it's growing you. It's kind of like that. A rock under
your
pressure.
Your partner is your mirror,
right?
They're your mirror,
right? But she basically said we are living in a world where it's a highlight reel. We are so curated in society that when there is a crack in the system, meaning marriage, she was talking about, people are devastated. Like I see comments whenever there's announcements like the Iman and Tiana, or the Tina Lawson and Richard Lawson, Tina Knowles and Richard Lawson, or the Corey and Tia's. And it seems as if it's coming from the younger generation, but I don't want to skew it that way. But I see comments of like, well, this is marriage, I don't want it. Like, does anybody stay together anymore? And it's because we're so like
the fairy tale.
Right. We are so drawn to that fairy tale, but real life is two human beings that are imperfect have chosen to come together and align under God. And there's going to be some conflict and some strife with that.